Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm really looking forward to talking to Sid Garza-Hillman. Sid, I love everything that you are doing in your business and in your life because we're talking about today about, you are the founder of smallsteppers.com. And, you've got books, you've got so many things that you do, but really we're talking about how to change our habits, right? How to put long-term habits and systems in place.
Correct.
And I think that, one of the things that I think a lot of people are having trouble with right now, I think especially because of COVID, it has been really difficult for people to find those habits. You are a writer, you're a nutritionist, you're a podcaster, you're a YouTuber that help people basically take control of their lives through these kind of small steps, right, of changing their habits.
That's right.
And I find that with people with less structure that people have in their lives right now, they need this more than ever, right? How do I build the habits that I need to every single day? So welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking time. Where do we even begin to start talking about building better habits?
Well, thanks for having me because I'm really happy to be here. And you nailed it. The COVID issue was an interesting one for me as a coach because all of a sudden people had more free time and then the pressure of filling it. And it's like, just because you have 6 hours more per day because you're not commuting and doing that, I've been talking about this a lot in my work. Our level of stress in the modern world is at a raised level such that our trigger for overwhelm is very, very sensitive. We can go into overwhelm in almost any time. So the idea that just because I have this time, now I'm overwhelmed because I hate the word should be doing all of this kind of stuff.
Correct. Right. That self-expectation.
I should be right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so my approach is to say, listen, it's not about what you should. It's not about what you think you can. It's what, or not, I'll put it this way. It is about what you can do, not what you should do. Right. So if you say, well, I've got 6 hours free, but I'm overwhelmed, so I'll do nothing, then I'm the one that steps in and says, okay, well, what is your first small step? Now, I want to make sure that your listeners know a small step is not a fixed amount in the world. It's how you perceive the step. If you perceive it as too big, you're going to burn out. If you perceive it as too small, you'll feel stagnant. So I'm training people to find that sweet spot where they're moving, and they're moving in a way that isn't leading to overwhelm and burnout. That's the trick. So for some people, their small step is quite big comparatively, and others, it's 1 minute walk around the living room is their first small step of exercise. That's not a joke. So
I just want to comment that too, because as a business coach, one of the things I talk about, Sid, is you got to lower your bar for consistency because that compounds. And so I'll just make it easy as if I'm talking to somebody, if you do one thing instead of, let's just make it for sales. If I'm talking to a salesperson, because it makes it easy.
Sure.
If you make one call a day, just minimum, that's 5 calls a week, 20 calls a month.
That's right.
And that's better than 15 calls one day a month. Right. And so building the habit is what allows you to go from 1 call to then 2 calls.
That's right.
But but I think we're sometimes, and I love you to touch on this because I think where people get frozen and stuck, and as I see it, is there's a law of proximity that if too big just gets you frozen. And so that's what I like about what you're talking about, small little steps, because that gets you to where you want to be.
That's right. And the trick is for people is that idea. So it's funny, you use sales, I use weight loss because a lot of my clients have come from me for weight, even though my approach has been used for productivity and management skills and all sorts of things, because the same idea applies. A lot of people come to me and say, I'm all or nothing. I'm a perfectionist. Right. I got to go all in. I go most times, almost every time, if you're all or nothing, it means you're doing nothing. And it does compound. I mean, that's such a good point. It's like people have used my approach to declutter their houses. They walk into their house, it's clutter, it's stressful. I should do this. It's overwhelming. But if they start with removing 2 items per day, in 30 days, they've removed 60 items out of their house. Yeah. That's a huge thing. And a year later, their house is decluttered and they didn't even realize it because they've just been kind of plugging along every day. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the trick. It's like removing this kind of all or nothing mentality that's making us stagnant and making us not do anything and making us stressed, and saying, okay, what can I do today? And then what you said, which is the truth, once you start doing it, it's not about how effective you are on that given day, but once you make it a routine, then you grow it.
You grow it, right?
And
right.
then by the time you grow it and take your time, it still doesn't stress you out. Going from 2 calls to 3 calls after 2 weeks isn't a big jump. It's fine.
Right.
I still got it. But look how it's compounding over time. All of a sudden, you're just on all 4 cylinders, right?
Right.
And that's the idea.
But let's talk about the mental game, because, you know, what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, I have been working on personally for myself my whole life, right? And so that mental game to do something small consistently is more mindset than anything else. And so how do we and how do you advise your people to get into the right mindset? We're going to get into your system in a minute, but I think to me, it all starts with mindset, awareness, raising frequency, vibration, consciousness. Like what's that?
Well, that is the deal. So for me, that's why my core strategy is called awareness-based habit change. This isn't me sending somebody to go, okay, do 2 minutes of this and do it for 42 days, because that's what the latest study said, that you'd have to do it for that long or whatever, that crazy thing. It's being aware along the way so that you're first and foremost managing your stress to again. And so because of that, you're in charge of the progression, because you're always keeping yourself in an adaptive stress place, not too much, not too little. I call it the Goldilocks of stress, this kind of right amount of stress. And if you can manage that over time, then you win. That's a mindset issue. Managing your stress and being aware when you're heading to overwhelm, being aware when you've taken on too much is a mindset issue. So I always start there. It's always the backdrop of anything that you apply my small steps approach to is a backdrop of self-care and a backdrop of awareness. So you can avoid that burnout that is inevitable in almost every system if you take on too much, including, of course, diets.
Yeah. So let's talk about diets, because I think I think I can speak for many people who have had, we all know freshman 15 in college. It's kind of like the COVID-10, the COVID-20,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, and we're still in it. I'm in Detroit, and so the weather's starting to be nicer. But how do you control your eating during COVID, right? Like, those, for me, it's kind of like between 7 and 9 p.m. is where it's like, that's my spot, Sid. We can maybe talk about that offline.
Yeah, we can. Totally.
I'm like all in, and then 7, 8, right? But what is that? Like, how do you do it during COVID?
Well, you do it during COVID the same way you do it at any other time. And this is what's key, is that as a small stepper, you are aware of your circumstances and you apply your actions based on those circumstances. So you're always pushing the envelope just before overwhelm. So during COVID, it's the same thing. When things get back to normal, it's the same thing. It's being fluid and adaptable and versatile. That's, to me, a mark of a successful human being, is versatility, not rigidity, not militancy. Yeah. But again, like you said, it's all about the mindset. So what I do really quick is before people take action one, is I have them establish their ideal. I have them do this exercise where they picture their ideal life as if it's happening now. They write it in present tense. I am this, I am this, I am this, I'm doing this, I own this business, I'm doing this thing, my marriage is this way. Then they emerge and say, okay, well, in the world, I'm doing these things that are in conflict with those ideals, or sometimes I'm doing these things that are in line with my ideals. And it's the stuff with the conflict where then they start to make moves via the small steps to get closer to that ideal. Yeah. That's the deal. So in the reality of controlling so-called your diet, controlling our diet with like holding on too tight, it's a powder keg. It's going to blow. And people are militant and rigid around food, and then they blow and they go right back to what they used to do because it's less stress, right? So it is adding in and bringing in and having, again, that ethic of self-care, of nourishment, of saying, I'm doing this to make myself feel better, and I can have treats too because I don't want to hold on so tight that I burn out. And it's, again, that same ethic. It's, to me, I was a philosophy major. I got my bachelor's degree in philosophy from UCLA. It's never left my process. Never left it, because I always want that ethic there, because that's where we're going. For success, to me, is not financial. It's happiness and health and vibrancy. And that's an ethic there.
Who's your favorite philosopher? Hippocrates? Who's your
probably Aristotle.
Aristotle?
Yeah, Aristotle.
Why?
Because he and I found out that he was like a racist, and so I had to do a podcast episode. I was like, damn it, Aristotle, now you got a thing. Anyways,
Aristotle was a racist?
Totally. He justified slavery and like those people. He was like cuckoo. So I'm trying to go like, okay, too bad.
They don't teach you that in school.
No, they don't. Not in my ethics class. And so I learned it just recently. I was like, son of a. Anyways, and so
I'm done with Aristotle.
But he did talk about the virtue the virtuous human being one that exercises his and her sort of that executive thinking part of us, that rational side, that thing that says, I feel anger, I feel craving, but I don't act on it. It's that ability to exercise that muscle and develop that muscle. We know now that it's in the prefrontal cortex, kind of that managing thing. Regardless of emotions that you're feeling, you kind of take control, and it's working to that end. And I have used that. I cited it in him. I cited Aristotle in my first book, because it's developing that side of us, and we do that best when we maintain our stress. When we go into stress mode,
moving away from Aristotle.
Okay.
I'm done with him.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your system.
Okay.
Because I think people are always looking for kind of like a system. And, one of the things you talk about is you're not about quick fixes or diets or exercise DVDs or, but people are looking for that. I think people are a lot of times looking for kind of like the in a box, right? Versus kind of the long-term, healthy living. So,
Sure.
Talk a little bit about your approach.
Well, first I would say is what people are looking for, in my experience of doing this a while now, and maybe not everybody, but everybody I've ever worked with, what they're looking for, and they think it's in that box, isn't in the box. What they're looking for is long-term health and happiness. They're not looking for a scale weight and that's it. They're looking to keep the weight off. They're not looking for a fit body and then to get unfit again. They want to keep it off. Those are two different goals. If you're just haven't put enough thought in to think, if I just hit 172 on a scale, I will be happy, then of course you're going to go to a quick fix because it says I can get you there as fast as possible. I'll tell you everything to do. You just shut your brain off and do it. But if you realize that your goal isn't just hitting the weight, but keeping it off, different ballgame. It seems similar, but it's a totally different ballgame because now you're talking about long-term habit change. Now you're talking about having to engage in the process in order to stick with it long enough to actually make it a reality and become that person, not just do the thing, but become the thing. Yeah. That's a different ballgame. So I'm anti those things because they're selling people on an idea that they're going to be happy and healthy with relatively no effort, and it's not their actual goal.
Yeah. So my father-in-law and my aunt have been to Pritikin many times. And one of the things that they will say at Pritikin is there's no such thing as a bad day. There's just a bad meal. And in business, what line I use is, everybody, if you have a bad moment, get back to center and this, then the other.
That's right.
And so how do you rebound from just like, a day of food gone wild, right? So whether it's you're just done, you're sick of thinking about it, you have an event, a birthday, or this and the other. How do you then kind of get back and get started with the same focus, right?
Yeah.
I know for me, for example, like when I do that, it takes me like 2-3 days to kind of, get back into the flow.
Sure. And I would say that 2-3 days is it's a drop in the bucket. I always tell my clients, like, we don't sweat one-offs. I'd say the same. We don't sweat one-offs. It's not.
I like that.
We don't sweat one-off. What I will say is that in my approach, and I have people maintain a steps list. It's a list of things, and having non-food related steps on that list that lead you to, again, overall stress management, allow you to be in a place to make choices that are in line with who you are. And I want to be clear that I highlight what I just said. I'm not saying that if you're low stress, you have to make healthy choices all the time. Look, we like to have junk food. We like to have treats. I don't tell people not to eat chips. I just want them to, if they're going to eat it as a choice. So then they can enjoy it more, not feel guilt and shame around it, not dwell on the fact that they had chips. Oh, so horrible. They go, yeah, I had chips. So what? That's how you get back in the saddle, because the next day you go, I had chips yesterday. I'm going to eat a little better today. And it's not a huge swing. It's not a big up and down. It's not a binge and then a fast. It's a little tweaks here and there. You're kind of controlling. It's how I've been living for a long time, but it took me a long time to get there where I don't think about food day to day. If I eat bigger on the weekends, I just retighten up during the week, and it's not a major thing, but for some people it is. And I try to just kind of kick that can down the road and start to establish stress management tools so that then when they just relate to food in the future, they do it in a more effective way.
Yeah. I want to talk about breathing because right before we went on live, you'd said you're now a breathing coach.
That's right.
And I love that. I think so many people don't think about how one of the best tools we have is our breath. We take, I can't remember off the top of my head, 7.5 or 8, close to 8.5 million breaths a year. And our breath will get us back to center. 5 deep breaths will get us out of fight or flight.
That's right.
Breath is so important. I've been meditating for 25 years.
Yeah.
It has been a huge gift to me, and it doesn't cost anything. And so, I mean, but I shouldn't say that. It can cost an investment in yourself to learn how to breathe, to work with a coach like you, right? That's a huge investment. I've taken transcendental meditation. I've taken Silva Mind classes. I've taken breathing courses and worked with instructors because I know it's so good. So talk about just the power of breath on so many levels, even on a cellular level, however deep you want to take it. Because I think it's that, personally, I think it's that critical. I think you do too. That's why you are now a breathing coach as well.
Yeah, it fits seamlessly into my overall practice. I'm to be clear, it's the system is called Oxygen Advantage. I'm a certified instructor through Oxygen Advantage. I'm a guy named Patrick McEwen. I don't know how to pronounce. He's Irish anyway. He developed the system. It's based on the Buteyko method. So I went through his course and became a certified instructor. It's key on every level you just said. We're chronically hyperventilating in the modern world, not in a major level, but definitely more breaths per minute than is healthy for us. We're kicking out too much carbon dioxide. I know that sounds like you're supposed to. Actually being able to exist with a little more carbon dioxide in the bloodstream and desensitizing ourselves to that a little bit more carbon dioxide actually makes the oxygenation of our tissues more efficient and more effective. Elongating the exhale, elongating the exhalation stimulates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve attaches to every visceral organ, the gut bacteria. It's the rest and digest side of our nervous system. You got the sympathetic, which is the stress of the modern world, and you got the parasympathetic, which is sort of the rest and digest. I've had plenty of clients come to me with digestive issues, and they want to talk food, and I go, we're talking stress, not food. Your diet's actually pretty good. What's happening is that you're at a higher level of stress, and your digestion is not efficient, and it's not effective. So elongating your breath, slowing your breath, softening your breath, elongating that exhalation. There's a thing called heart rate variation. I don't want to go too deep into the woods on this, but the difference between the time between beats, more heart rate variation happens when you elongate your breath. We're sort of becoming robotic in the modern world. We're sort of breathing very pattern oriented, but to actually have a little bit shorter of an inhale and a little longer of an exhale slightly raises your heart rate on the inhale and slightly lowers it on the exhale. And that's a calming way. So as I'm coaching people in my small steps, but also in food and running, I'm like, breathing perfect, fits in running perfectly, nasal, all through your nose, no mouth breathing. This is how crazy I am, John. I tape my mouth shut now because I was a chronic mouth breather for 51 years until I went through this course. I thought, oh my God. So I tape my mouth shut. I've been breathing through my nose. I've been sleeping better. My teeth are not sensitive. They were like sensitive before. I'm running better. I'm running all mouth, all nose breathing through all my running and biking, everything, all nose breathing.
Really? All nose breathing, like yoga breathing.
So sometimes in yoga, you go in through the nose and out through the mouth. This is in and out through the nose. This is there's all sorts of benefits to this that I don't need to go in now, but it's huge. So I transitioned to 100% nasal breathing, and I'm working with people as a breathing coach over 4 weeks, and they're feeling better, they're sleeping better, they're stressed, they're creating a habit of returning to their breath when they can and realizing out of awareness when their stress is kind of starting to climb, they immediately come back into their breath and bring things back down, just like you were saying. Yeah,
that's so amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's fascinating. Breath is so important. Let's rewind a little bit and talk about, how you get into this world, right? Like, I mean, give us kind of the 1-minute Reader's Digest on your path to today. And I ask because it's never a straight line for anybody. And I always like to hear, and I think the Think community likes to hear, just kind of how you got to where you are today, especially in a world where I think people are reevaluating what they want to do and the path that they're taking, and they're realizing it's not going to be a straight line. And so give us kind of the 1-minute Reader's Digest of you.
Yeah, 1 minute is no problem. My line is it ain't straight. I graduated from UCLA, and I joked that my philosophy major was training me very well to what I wanted to do, which was to be an indie rock musician. So I was playing gigs at night. I fell into acting. I fell into it. A guy gave my photo to his agent. I started working as an actor, Screen Actors Guild, for 10 years. Full-time actor, touring musician, put out records.
Oh, wow.
And Los Angeles got the best of me after 20 years. My wife and I decided to kick it up here to Mendocino Coast. I found a resort here that I started working at, the Stanford Inn and Resort. I decided after 1992, given a book nutrition, cured myself of asthma. So even though I was playing music and acting, I started reading book after book about nutrition. By the time we moved up here, I thought, I think I want to do this. It just seemed fun. I was burnt on LA, burnt on acting music, went back to school, became a nutritionist, started working at the wellness center at the Stanford Inn, and rest goes from it. Wrote a few books, crafted my process, and boom, here we are.
So cool. What would I have seen you in?
Men in Black 2 and My Best Friend's Wedding and City of Angels, bunch of commercials. I did a ton of commercial. American Express and Western Union there's a Seinfeld American Express thing that I was in years ago, which was huge for me because I was a huge Seinfeld fan, and I got to be in a scene with him in the grocery store, which was pretty fun.
Oh, that's cool. What were you in Men in Black 2? That's pretty cool.
What's that?
What were you in Men in Black 2?
I was Agent G. Look, I'll tell you this. I was not an extra. I was never an extra, but I was a day player. I'm not like I was never a huge star, but you recognizable, credited,
That's cool. And My Best Friend's Wedding.
Yep. City of Angels, Arlington Road. I had a pretty big part in Arlington Road with Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins. It's
very cool.
Terrorist thing. Yeah. So I made it. It was cool because I got to tour around with my band. I'd call my agent, go, be out of town for a month, and then I could kind of hit the road, come back.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right. So my last question before we do a speed round. To the person who's kind of sitting thinking, I need to build better habits. I need to kind of get my nutrition in sync. What do they do?
They first ask the question and think about it. What are your actual goals? In other words, if you think it's weight loss, is it keeping it off or just getting there and gaining it back? Define your ideals. Make sure you think as big as possible in terms of crafting your ideals. Know who you are deep down. Know what you stand for. Define yourself. Don't act until you get that on paper, literally. Get it done. Then begin the process. Once you have your goals set and very clear, begin the process of action by saying, my first act today is going to be one that is so easy and so stupidly ridiculous, but it gets me moving. Yeah. Once I'm moving, then I can start growing. And if I take on too much, I can back it back down. And that's not failure, that's success. And you continue that process by maintaining awareness around the habit itself, heading off overwhelm. If you're doing too much, you will stop. So that's the way you get moving. Don't care about how much time you have more on your hands now because of COVID. What are you able to do now that will avoid burnout, and begin to do that today? I
love it. All right. You ready for a quick speed round, Sid?
I hope so. I hope so. I've been training my whole life for that.
What's more important? Food, the food we eat, or exercise?
Food we eat.
Okay. Favorite book and why?
The Sports Writer by Richard Ford. It's just a great novel, totally unrelated to anything I do, but the writing in it is amazing. The character is amazing. It's always been my favorite book.
All right. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Recently is one of the best, Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins I reread, and it said you have to prepare your mind for wisdom. You can't just bring the wisdom in. You got to get ready for the wisdom. And I thought that was I've been using that a lot lately.
I love that. That's so important. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody needs to do starting today to live their healthiest life is?
Take more deep breaths.
Yeah, this isn't a speed round question, but I think this is a relevant question that just popped in my head. Talk about the importance of eating right to decrease inflammation.
Huge. So you want to simplify this. If your food has fiber in it, it's healthier than if it doesn't, period. And a story, because the fiber is going to be part of a plant that is going to be lowering your overall inflammation. High protein diets, highly inflammatory. This whole keto craziness is killing us. Lowering the temperature in your body, slowing things down in your body, eating things that your body understands and can process efficiently and cleanly is going to lower overall inflammation. And the fiber feeds the gut bacteria. People don't realize that. And that the gut bacteria is one of the primary drivers of inflammation in the body. Dysbiosis, an unhealthy gut flora, is a driver of inflammation. So feeding your gut bacteria is as important as feeding your body. Fiber is what does that.
And what are, on that note, because you're talking about keto, but what is the healthiest way to eat, right? I mean, I think sometimes people don't know, how do you divide up? I know there's keto, there's counting macros, there's, what is a balanced way to eat today that does decrease inflammation?
Whole plants. Straight up. And look, I don't eat 100% whole plants, but I have been 100% plant-based for 18 years. I also drink single malt scotch because there's a bigger picture of stress relief and having fun. But I will say the best tune for our bodies biologically are whole plants. We function best on those. So the more that you can bring those in, the better the healthier you're going to be and the lower stress you're going to be. But, food is only one part of the picture, but whole plants is where it's at.
And so if you were to be a whole plant person, but then layer in some type of additional protein,
well,
in order of the least, inflammatory foods, what are those? Fish, chickens, organic? What is it?
Yeah, it doesn't. So I will be very clear, like spinach has more protein than beef. So it's not like there's any protein deficiency in whole plants, the opposite of that. So again, a lot of animal foods are more fat than protein. We call it protein, but we have to be aware beef is on average about 20% protein, 80% fat. So we're going into protein, but it's way huge fat source. So by eating whole plants and getting your protein from whole plants, you're also getting everything else, way more vitamins and minerals and fiber, again, that feeds that gut bacteria. So you can layer in whatever else you want, just do it minimally. And that goes for plant-based junk food like white rice and white flour and olive oil. But you can primarily whole plants and then less of the other stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Tell everybody who your ideal clients are.
People
and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, well, they can connect with me, smallsteppers.com or smallstepintensive.com. My ideal clients are people who have been through yo-yo dieting or yo-yo, quick fix models. They're burnt, they're done, they want to do it right, and they want to never have to do it again. They come to me almost crawling, like, can I just not do another yo-yo thing where I get success, feel good about myself, and then lose it and feel bad about it. I'm over that cycle, and they want to get serious and adult and get it done for real. Then we get to work.
But how do they work with you? What's the program look like?
Smallsteppers.com is an online 12-week program. I'm very involved in it. I jump in to do live Q&As, but it's a self sort of, weekly videos, daily emails. Again, 12 weeks to make sure that you're in it for long enough where you get past the initial excitement and actually start to realize and see what it's like to be this way. Some clients want increased accountability and a one-on-one model. So I have the small step intensive. I take very few clients, up to 3, literally at a time, no more than that, because it's a huge time investment for me. You're in with me day to day for 12 weeks, but it is like insane because you're learning the system, but you're also actually getting inroads into the actual goals that you want, whether it be productivity or weight gain, weight loss or weight management or whatever, or exercise fitness. So that's the small step intensive. So
what's the time commitment for the
12 weeks?
No, but I mean, 10 minutes a day, an hour a day.
It depends. It's a good question. It depends on the person. So they're learning to negotiate how much they're engaged on steps based on their lives. So if they're working, super busy days, they might think in moments. They might have a sign on their desk that has them take 1 deep breath per hour. And that's what they can do at that time, or 5 minutes of exercise in the morning, because that's what they can do. They're learning that even moments are very, very powerful. You never shut yourself off to your life. So you negotiate based on what you've got going to do as much as you can without burning out.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Sid, I love it. I love everything that you're talking about right now.
Thank you.
I think it is so important. And, a couple of my final thoughts as you're talking, the importance of really investing in yourself. Right. I'm kind of using my words, but that's what I'm hearing you say, of investing in yourself. And it's about the small things every single day, and the commitment of retooling your habits, which is the 12 weeks, and committing to yourself for long-term success. I think that, the accountability that we need for that sometimes is more important than we think.
That's right.
Sometimes we think we can do it on our own, but a lot of times we can't. I'm a business coach, and I work with successful people who are stuck and getting them unstuck. And I work with everybody from solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies and everything in between. Everybody needs some help.
Yes.
Everybody needs some clarification and direction
and perspective.
And I love what you're doing as it relates to food and breath. And you can spill all of that into so many other avenues of the world.
That's right.
As I was saying, you're getting people unstuck and getting to their healthier, ideal life, like you're talking about. I do that through business. So if anybody who's listening wants, I offer my book and my 100-page ebook downloadable for free on my website, because I want to do my piece in helping everybody get unstuck as quickly as they can. So awesome. I think that's so important. Well, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom. I think community, if Sid can help you, smallstepintensive.com. is the website, or the other website is smallsteppers.com.
Yep.
Sid, stay on the line, but I appreciate you being on the show. Think community, thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, John.